Right, good evening. My name is Deborah Halliday Mills, and I am the Charity Program Manager for 261 Fearless. On this International Women's Day, on behalf of 261 Fearless, I would like to welcome you to the Mandarin Oriental Hotel and to our evening celebrating fearless, game-changing women. And as we are being live-streamed around the world, thanks to WBZ CBS Boston, I would like to extend a special welcome to our global audience. It is my honor to introduce Maura Healey, the Attorney General for the state of Massachusetts. Maura leads the People's Law Firm as the People's Lawyer, continuing a career spent fighting for justice and equal rights. And on this day, International Women's Day, it is our pleasure to welcome Maura to our evening of fearless and game-changing women. Maura.
Well, I can't think of a better place to be in celebrating International Women's Day than right here with all of you. I was just speaking with Edith. Edith, as you may know, is from Austria. And Edith and Catherine met years ago, connected over a shared sensibility of being fierce, strong, intentional individuals, and together dreamed up this wonderful, wonderful program that we're celebrating here today. So I really am happy to be here. I want to congratulate all the folks who are on the panel for their wonderful accomplishments. You're all amazing individuals. Ayanna Pressley is a dear friend of mine, a dear friend to so many in Boston, and is running in her own right to be a member of the United States Congress. So we welcome Ayanna. You're in for a treat because you're going to hear her speak about the important work she has done empowering young girls and young boys, but in particular young girls and women here and across this state. And we know that kind of work, that kind of empowerment, that kind of esteem building is needed now more than ever. And then we have Joanne, who I met a year ago. Joanne, of course, is the first president of the Boston Athletic Association and has done so much in her career, but I look forward, I know you'll delight in hearing from her. And then, of course, Elizabeth, all of your work with the American Heart Association and bringing attention to issues that really impact women directly, that aren't often or as much talked about, that need to be talked about. And, of course, Zara. It was a treat getting to meet you, getting to meet your sister, and getting to meet your coach. And we've all enjoyed your blog, and we all draw tremendous inspiration from who you are and all that you represent. You give hope and inspiration to so many here and all across this world. And what can we say about Catherine? Well, you know, 2017 didn't get off to a great start for many of us. That started for me back in the fall of 2016. But I was particularly hopeful and empowered standing on the Common here in Boston, looking out at a sea of thousands and thousands of men, women, and children who had come forward to stand in support, to stand in solidarity for values of diversity, of inclusivity, of equality, of respect, of recognizing the dignity and the worth of every individual. And I think it was also a moment here in Boston, and indeed not just across the country, but across this world, where we saw people stand up and people speak out and recognize that there were going to be battles and fights and challenges ahead, but that it was our individual and collective obligation to meet those challenges. And when I think about a person who has met and overcome challenges, I think about Catherine. It's pretty amazing all that transpired here in Massachusetts a few years ago and all that that represents. Indeed, so much has changed in many respects since that time, but unfortunately, much remains the same. Here in Massachusetts just a few weeks ago, we announced new guidance that we were going to be issuing to implement an equal pay law. You would have thought that after 70 years, You would have thought that after 70 years of having a law on the books that said men and women are entitled to be paid equally for the same work, that we wouldn't still be dealing with this problem. But in fact, we were dealing with significant disparities that exist for white women, disparities that are even more severe when it comes to Black and Latina women. And so last year here in Massachusetts, we passed a first-of-its-kind law, and I was proud to help draft that and support that, and then issue recently guidance that's going to help implement that to make that real. And that's just one example of the ongoing work that we need to do. We've also been really proud as an office to be investing in our young people in schools around this state with an innovative program that we call Game Change. It's resulted from a partnership with the New England Patriots. And basically what we're doing is we're working in schools talking to young boys and young girls about self-esteem, confidence, how to build healthy relationships, how to recognize the signs of stalking behavior, of teen dating violence, of domestic violence, and importantly, talking to them about how not just to be bystanders, but really to be upstanders in this, how to take action, right? How to have the agency and the wherewithal and the support to address those issues so that people don't suffer the trauma and violence and recurring trauma and violence that so many women and girls have suffered for generations. So that's a little bit of what we're doing here in Massachusetts, and these efforts are so, so important. I truly believe that it is an effort that is both individual and collective. And when I think about the marathon, and just a few weeks from now, we'll be celebrating runners as they stream down Boylston Street, right? Do we have runners in the room?
Sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of runners in the room. It's so cool. I've only got myself a half marathon. I did the half marathon this year, so maybe next year I'll have an opportunity and I'll run alongside some of you. But one of the things that I find so inspiring in that day, the Boston Marathon, is that it is both an individual and collective movement and spirit. Every single runner comes with her own story, her own experience, her own motivation, something that brought her to this. And as I've talked with so many of you who are part of 261 Fearless here tonight, what it is that animated you, what it is that got you out running, you know, it's different for every individual, but it's important. And I think that coming together in the collective, that's how we have power, right? And that's how we really maximize power and maximize energy and maximize spirit. So I think the marathon is wonderfully symbolic of what's possible, what can transpire, and I think that 261 Fearless, to me, is the recipe and for what is needed, what is right in this time. In this time in particular, there is a powerful movement and a powerful energy all across this country. Last week I was in Washington, D.C., meeting with students from Parkland, Florida. And to listen to their voices and to be lifted by their voices, to me, it just reflects what we've seen in other movements over the last few years. There is so much power out there. There is so much goodwill and good spirit. It is all about harnessing it. It is all about capturing it. That's what 261 Fearless is all about. Enjoy tonight's wonderful panel, and I look forward to work that maybe we can do together in the time ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maura. I would now like to introduce Edith Zushman, the CEO and president of 261 Fearless. We are proud to have Edith at the helm of our global nonprofit women's running network. Under her leadership, our small, fearless organization has grown to touch the lives of women around the world. Edith.
Welcome and thanks for coming here tonight to our 261 Fearless Game-Changing Women panel. It's an honor for me to be here, and it's a special honor for me to have those amazing women here on the stage. And yeah, and I'm also happy and thankful that we can be here in the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Boston. And Boston has a very, very important meaning for 261 Fearless, because it's the place where everything has started 51 years ago. And there was this young lady who just wanted to enjoy running, and she came here and crossed officially the finish line and showed how powerful running is and how it can help to get over obstacles and become fearless. And she was the one who created opportunities in running for women. So Catherine is now passing the torch towards us, and with 261 Fearless, we want to continue to empower women through running here in Boston, in Massachusetts, in the United States, and beyond. So what do? So we provide education programs to inspire women to get involved with running. And then we have our local 261 clubs, where women find the opportunity without being judged or getting into performance pressure, and just find the joy of running. And there, we hope that they find the experience, or get the experience, what it means to feel the power, become empowered, and become their own game changers in their own lives, for their communities, and beyond. So this is all possible, and like Maura Healey just said, and we try to bring the power together when you have partners, when you have friends, when you have a supportive family. And so I also want to use this here to say a big thanks to all our partners of 261 Fearless, because together we can really make it happen. For example, this wonderful evening, so I want to thank to the Mandarin Oriental Hotel hosting us. Also, thank you. The Boston Magazine, one of our partners in the very first minute, so they brought together and helped us networking for this event, so also a very big thanks to their team. And also a very, very special thanks to the team of WBC CBS Boston to bring this panel to the women out there globally. So thank you for being here and giving us the opportunity. And I also want to thank two partners who are with us also right from the beginning. This is Adidas, our global sports gear partner, and Bose, the leader in sound systems, a company also located here in the Massachusetts area. And nothing is possible without an amazing team. And so I also want to use this opportunity to thank our 261 team, thank Catherine, who is always with us and supporting and driving us and inspiring us and help us to go further. And each single 261 coach, we have a few here. We have our 261 Club Director of the Greater Boston area here. Thanks for your passion, for your effort, and I'm very happy having you, and I wish you a very inspiring and also eye-opening evening here in Boston. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. Just a few words of how we're structuring tonight. Our event tonight is a panel discussion. Our game changers here on stage will each answer some questions regarding activity, decision-making, and mentoring, and describe to you what it means to be fearless. And we will then open up the floor to questions from the audience. And it's now my honor to introduce to you our panel of extremely accomplished, game-changing women. Ayanna Pressley, in 2009, became the first woman of color to be elected to the Boston City Council. In 2011, Ayanna became the first woman in 30 years and the first woman of color ever to top the ticket. Her career has been marked by history-making campaigns and a relentless determination to advance a policy agenda focused on girls and women, breaking cycles of poverty and all forms of violence and trauma. Ayanna founded and chairs the City Council's Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Communities, and is an Aspen Rodell Fellow in Public Leadership, and is also a candidate for the 7th Congressional District. So welcome, Ayanna. Joanne Flaminio, a member of the Boston Athletic Association since 1993, was elected to its Board of Governors in 1996, and in 2011 became the first woman president in the organization's 131-year history. She was at the helm of the BAA in the aftermath of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings and helped shape a positive response to the tragedy. Her leadership was praised, both locally and nationally. Among her many projects, she partnered with the Boston chapter of the Lynx Incorporated to establish a successful health and wellness initiative at the MLK School in Boston. Welcome, Joanne. Elizabeth Perry Terrell is the first Vice President of Athletics at the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, the nation's oldest and largest voluntary organization dedicated to fighting heart disease and stroke. Elizabeth oversees fundraising athletic events in and around Boston. Perhaps the most prominent is Teddy's team, the endurance training team that collaborates with former New England Patriot Teddy Bruschi. Elizabeth has over 18 years of experience in nonprofit fundraising and event management. An avid runner, she completed her first Boston Marathon in 2017. Welcome, Elizabeth. Zara Arabzada is a junior at Hobart and William Smith Colleges in New York State. Zara was raised in Afghanistan and became an activist for women and children's rights at a young age after observing inequalities in her community. While attending the first female boarding school in the country, she had the opportunity to study at St. George's School in Rhode Island, where she was introduced to the freedom of sports and became a member of the cross-country team. She has since run a 50-mile ultramarathon and authors a blog, The Hijabi Runner. Welcome, Zara. And Catherine Switzer is an iconic athlete, author, and advocate for sports and social causes. Catherine was the first woman to officially enter and run the Boston Marathon in 1967. She went on to create a global circuit of 400 races in 27 countries that led to the inclusion of women's marathon in the Olympic Games. Last April, she ran the Boston Marathon on the 50th anniversary of her historic Boston run, celebrating women's achievements and launching the global nonprofit 261 Fearless, which empowers women through running and is named after her famous Boston bib number. The day after the race, the marathon honored bib 261 with a ceremony in which the number was officially retired. In 2016, Catherine was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, which recognized her for creating positive social change throughout her career. Welcome, Catherine. Thank you. So before we move to our questions for the evening, I'd like to ask each panelist to speak for 3 minutes about themselves and what they believe to be the key elements to become a female game changer. Ayanna, would you like to begin?
I'll try. So my name is Ayanna Presley. As the bio intro referenced, I'm currently at-large Boston City Councilor. So for those of you who reside and vote in the city of Boston, I have the honor of serving as one of your 4 citywide city councilors. I'm also a candidate for the 7th Congressional District. Boston is an adopted home for me. I'm originally from Chicago. Without getting too resume focused, I just want to get right into the what makes for a fearless woman and a game changer. So for me, the thing that's always missing in my bio is that more than anything else, I am my mother's child. And she was a very dynamic and extraordinary and powerful woman, and so I would never say may she rest in peace, only may she rest in power. But I do think that that is a critical component and ingredient for every fearless woman and game changer, and that is a role model. My mother inspired me by her example. You know, I like to think that life is energy, and so in that sense, it never dies. It just is transformed. And so I'd like to think that I've absorbed the best parts of my mother after her transition, and every time I do something a little bit bolder and braver and more fearless, I feel like that's her showing up. So some of the adjectives also that I would use is that I, especially since I recently embarked upon this race, people will say, thank you for being so brave, and I don't feel especially brave. I don't think that warrior women are even usually aware that they're warriors. I think this is about a greater and deeper love and sort of passion and compelling for something. For my mother, that was the love of child. For me in this run, it is a love of service. And so I think those ingredients. So a role model, a love, a deeper compelling. And I think if you follow that, the universe aligns in your favor. And you usually end up then making history. But I don't think most women that make history set out to make it.
Sure. I would agree with that last statement. In my case, there was a little luck involved. I think nothing happens without a little bit of luck. And in the fall of October 2010, there was a computer glitch when you went to register for the Boston Marathon for 2011. Because of that, there was increased public scrutiny at the BAA that looked at our Board of Governors and our organization. And I think there was an overall feeling that we needed some change. We needed a greater diversity. We needed to update things. We needed to modernize and not just have an old-fashioned sort of club organization. And so I think I was there at the right time. So in January of 2011, I took the reins. That's not to say that I wasn't ready. So I think that's the first thing I would say about being a fearless game changer. What does Louis Pasteur say? Luck favors the prepared mind. And I was ready. I had gone to every committee meeting and every event and had learned as much as I could about the BAA in order to that if there was an opportunity, then my name could be called. The other thing I would say is that you don't always do it alone. We're all in this together. I had women who came before me, most notably Gloria Ratty, who still serves with me on the BAA Board of Governors, who really championed my ability and said, you know, maybe you ought to take a look at this woman. She's really worth it. And in terms of elements of a fearless game changer, I simply have to use the word resilience. You know, I signed up to be the president of an organization that staged the Boston Marathon. Well, in the time period 2013, 2014, it was a hell of a lot more than that. You don't really know what is going to happen when you take on the reins of something. There is a Harvard Business School historian who recently wrote a book on courageous leadership, who says leaders are made, not born. So it's really the circumstance around you that allows you to go forward and to shine. And so that was really a turbulent period for me, and one that I didn't expect. And actually, the toughest period was not so much even the aftermath of 2013, but actually leading up to 2014 and the incredible expectations on our small organization with regard to staging a peaceful and secure and safe marathon. And the last thing I would say about being a fearless game changer is you got to know what you want to do. You know, you got to have a vision. You got to have, you know, why are you here? You know, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you can answer those questions, I think you're well on your way. So,
okay. Perfect. Great.
Thank you, Joanne.
That's kind of impossible to follow for both of you, but I'll try my hardest. I would agree with Ayanna as well. I am very lucky that not only do I have a fantastic role model in my mother, I also have a fantastic role model in my father as well, and the two of them have been such an amazing supportive team from day one for both my sister and I. And I think that that's truly what a person, or at least what I needed to be a fearless game changer, was that support system from day one. The ability to know that no matter what I did, no matter what mistakes I made along the way, that my parents were going to be right there beside me, rooting me on, and letting me know that if I made a mistake, it was going to be okay. And that if I hit a roadblock, there was going to be another door that was going to open and allow me to succeed. And my mother and father always taught me how to be resilient. Exactly, resilience is key. But one of the other things that I would say is really important in being a game changer is knowing that you are always part of a team. Truly, you can't do it on your own. You can try, and some will succeed, but in my experience, everything that I have done throughout my almost 39 years of existence, it has been a part of a team. I know, right? Sorry. But everything that I have done from day one has been a part of a team. My mother and father, my sister and I were a team from day one. And throughout everything that I have been able to accomplish, or everything that I have been able to fall flat on my face with, I have been able to do that with the support system that has been there. So you need to be resilient. You need to have a path. You need to have a vision. And obviously, the key of being fearless is obviously having no fear, but to truly understand that there are going to be things that are not going to go your way, and that's okay. Because as cliche as it sounds, when one door closes, there's going to be another one that opens. And I would say one major key to being fearless is being patient.
Okay, good. Agreed. Thank you. Sarah.
It's kind of hard to follow all of them, but I will try my best. I would say there are three main elements of becoming who I am today, I believe. And the first one is accepting their failures and rejections. And bear with me, it might sound very cliche, and I really have been struggling with that too. Like, it's a very universal fact that getting rejected is not easy. It hurts a lot. I actually got rejected. I got rejected from the first time when I applied to my boarding school. I have been rejected from 2/3 of the internships that I have applied this summer.
Apply here, please.
Accept it, okay? Accept it, okay?
Thank you.
I'm going to join that and say, well, I'll do you an internship too.
Thank you. I'm glad that actually worked out. Or actually, when I was finishing during my 50-miler race, my feet was covered in blisters. But one thing I've realized is that I actually learned more from the experiences that, like, when I've been rejected, when actually I couldn't go on from my race, like go on with my race. It taught me so much about myself, and that is a very great lesson that you can only know it when you're going through it, and it sucks. And I think the second element, the second element is my desire to leave this world a little bit of a better place than what it was given to me, despite the failures and despite all the difficulties. For instance, as I finished my 50-miler race, I got a message from my sister Gulnaz, who's a lawyer in Afghanistan, and she said, in honor of your race, I bought myself a treadmill, but running outside will always be my dream. While I was so thrilled, and I was so happy to hear that I share this love of running with another sibling of mine. It really hit me so hard that running for my sister is a dream. Like, running outside is a dream, and it's something that I get to experience every morning, every afternoon. And it was also a reminder that the long path that I have to go, and the things that I want my sister to experience and other Afghan women to experience. And lastly, I would say the ability to truly accept the sacrifices that you make in life, to be where exactly you are in life. I acknowledge that coming to America definitely did give me a lot of opportunities. I have the opportunity to run outside, to be in a science lab, and to learn and to go to school and not actually be so scared of walking outside. But it also, I haven't seen my family. I haven't seen my mom and dad in the past 4 years. And I think that is the price I pay for what I get from being in America. But I also really believe that it's the accumulation of all these sacrifices and failures and rejections, now that I have an internship. But it's the accumulation of all these failures and rejections and sacrifices that really assures me that I will be part of a change, and I will leave this world a little bit of a better place from the world that was passed on to me from my mother and grandmother and so on.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
All right. Hey!
You know, I have to tell you something. I teased these women. I said, I'm putting a stopwatch on you.
Yes.
And they are very damned impressive. They've all come in not only under 3 minutes, but average 2:40. So you're, the runner in me is always watching the time element.
Yes.
Now I've taken 16 seconds to tell you that in my time. Listen, I want to tell you a little bit about myself so we all are on the same page, which is, I mean, everybody knows the story about me running in '67, but getting attacked by the official at 1.5 miles, and he tried to pull off my bib number. Okay, that's what he was furious that a woman had registered for the race. He felt I was making a mockery of his race and that it was against the rules, although these rules were not written, but that's beside the point. And he ripped the corner off the one on the back. He couldn't get the one on the front, so he tried for the one on the back. And that, of course, has become the logo for 261 Fearless. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that story. But also, the point is about becoming a fearless woman, about being a game changer, really began for me probably at that moment, because running the Boston Marathon and having that happen was something that happened to me. I didn't create it. I was a kid who wanted to run. But finishing the race and making the decision to finish the race was a very, very important decision. And when I look back on, at 20, making that decision was tough because I was tired, I was embarrassed, and I was scared. But I did finish, and that was the thing. I just dug in, and nothing was going to deter me. And so it has been a pattern for the rest of my life, because I realized someplace over Heartbreak Hill that it was not the official's fault. He was a product of his time. But I wondered where the women were. And I got angry at women. That's how naive I was. I said, why don't they understand how wonderful running is? And the light bulb went on, and I realized they needed an opportunity, because as Zara said, you don't understand it until you do it. And you can't do it if somebody doesn't give you the opportunity or somehow you can envision it. You've got to feel it to understand that. And so I said, I am going to try to create those opportunities for women. And that became my life goal. I became a better athlete, but that's the easy part of the story. The more important thing is, how do you create that opportunity? And I did it basically through sponsorship, because I knew if we had the wherewithal to create those opportunities, we could do it. And I went to a big cosmetics company, Avon, at the time the world's largest cosmetics company, wrote a lot of business proposals for them, and created a global series of races where every single athletic federation in 27 countries said you weren't going to be successful. And the women came by their thousands. And we could take the data and statistics and participation to the International Olympic Committee, prove that we deserved to be in the highest form, and got the women's marathon in the Olympic Games. I got 15 seconds. So let me say then what my goals and my beliefs for making a game changer women are, which is determination, obviously fierce determination, persistence, really dogged persistence. So when people say you can't do it, you just stick to it. My dad used to call me the broken record, because I would never give up. And vision, the belief of seeing the bigger picture and how to look at that and see, to predict both bad things, but to predict wonderful things. And in terms of the last thing that to me is most incredibly important is the willingness to correct an injustice, take responsibility for it. You know, every one of us in this room has the ability to pick up an injustice and do something better. Most people walk away from it. Game-changing women do not walk away from it. Sometimes we break through it really hard and are aggressive and pushy. That's one way of doing it. Another way is picking it up, turning it upside down, and creating an opportunity for something better. And that's what I hope we have done with women's running. I could have sued the official. I could have gone crazy with the BAA and said, you're unfair. I said, no, we're going to create opportunities for women. And look at this, look at the history. It's become a social revolution, and it began here on the streets of Boston. So, yeah,
Thank you so much. You really tied together what it means to be a fearless woman, the vision, determination, having good role models, luck, resilience, team spirit, and success from failure. So thank you for sharing your personal stories, and I think there may have been a few tears in the room at some point as well. So our first question addresses the influence of running and sports. Has running or any other sport empowered you? And if so, how? This may be about your own participation, in your work in sports or creating or attending events? What led you to be influenced by sports? Elizabeth, would you like to begin?
Sure. For me, sports has been my livelihood. It was something that my family did on a regular basis, like Friday night, movie night with, popcorn and whatever. My family, we were at a sporting event. That was kind of our thing. And for me, when I was younger, they didn't have female sporting groups. They didn't have softball and things like that for young girls. And so my sister and I started playing baseball. And then when we started looking like we were girls, we couldn't play baseball anymore. And my father decided that's not good enough. My dad played baseball, he played football, he was an athlete in his own right. And he was not going to have an opportunity or a world where his daughters were not going to be able to play a sport, especially something that he loved and wanted us to be able to learn. So my dad, along with a few other people back in my hometown of Cranston, Rhode Island, that's where I'm from, Rhode Island, they created GALS, which is Girls Athletic League for Sports, and they created a softball league. And many years later, I through doing that, was a 3-sport athlete, softball, basketball, and soccer. Loved it. Softball was my favorite. Became All-State in high school. Absolutely loved it. So sports really showed me teamwork. It showed me how, when one door closes. So again, going back to what I said in the first one, the door closed. We weren't allowed to play baseball anymore. And when one door closed, this time I needed help. I was little. I couldn't do it on my own. But my dad helped open that door for my sister and I. And that was huge. That was a learning lesson for me, just to understand that not everything is going to go the way you like it. And you might have to deviate from what you initially wanted. I wanted to play baseball. I thought I was going to play in the major leagues. That was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. Well, obviously that didn't happen. But I still got such a fantastic experience playing softball. My dad coached me through all of my teams. He was a great role model. And so sports has taught me the importance of teamwork, and that has brought me through my professional career to make sure that I am supportive of everyone that I manage or work with, whether they are male or female, and to make sure that I am helping them achieve their personal and professional goals as well. So teamwork is a huge thing. It's a huge goal, and it's a huge reason of who I am, what I am, and why I am.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Sarah?
I actually remember the first race that I ever participated in. It was a 3K in my Providence. I was 9 years old back in 2006. Now you do the math. But I remember my older sister, Sahar, as she explained the details of the race and trying to convince my dad to let me participate in this race, I remember only focusing on one sentence that she said. And she said, if you're in top 10, they'll give you a bike. And there was the magical word, the bike. The next day, I had my game face on, and I was ready to train. When the race day came, I stood behind the line wearing my black school uniform and my white scarf and my flip-flops. And in my head, I knew there was nothing that could stand between me and that bike. Sore body, no training, no actually running shoes, and a gigantic scarf. None of that. I knew I wanted that bike. Running for the first time actually did not feel good. I did not ever wanted to do it again. But I did win the bike. However, I did win the bike that day. Somehow magic works. And even though I won the bike, only to be told that I'm too old to ride the bike. So the bike, my orange bike, hung from the ceiling of our kitchen, and the smoke from my mom's cooking covered every inch of my bike. Every once in a while, I sat next to my mom, and I just stared at the bike. And my mom would hug me, and she would cry herself too, because she knew all along about my plan of riding the bike and training for this, but she didn't have the courage to say it. She didn't want to break my heart. And I think seeing that and seeing that my orange bike just hang there, it was covered in dust, it was really a wake-up call for me. I think at age 10, I realized how much I wanted to change something. I wanted to change the fact that I can't ride my bike, the fact that I worked so hard for this bike. I mean, I thought I'm like training hardcore. I ran like half a kilometer. But I was really, it really was a wake-up call at age 10 that I wanted something to change. I wanted something to change within the society and something something to change so I could ride my bike. That was my goal. Like I could ride my bike. And that's how it all started.
Yeah. All right.
Catherine?
It's interesting that we're talking about our early beginnings. My beginnings began when my dad saw an insecure little kid who wanted to make the field hockey team in the high school. And he said I should run a mile a day. I was only 12. I was playing with dolls, you know. And I said, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. And he helped me measure off the yard, and I ran this mile a day. And I made the field hockey team. I turned out to be a pretty good little player. But what was interesting was the mile a day was more important to me than making the team, because it gave me a sense of empowerment and victory every day that was emboldened me in a high school environment with adults, you know, because I was a kid. And it gave me courage to try new things. And I always thought that running was my sort of secret weapon. It was my victory under my belt every day that nobody could take away from me and made me feel really strong. And I called it magic. And I've been running for 59 years, and it is magic. It really is. Every day I run, I feel that magic. And so we ask, how has running or sports changed your life? I would say totally and utterly, running has changed my life. Running has been really, in a way, the center of everything, because it's a transformational experience, not only for me, but millions and millions of women. I mean, that's why there are more women runners in the United States now than men. 58% of all the runners out there are women. That's true in Canada and France and Japan now. And it's not because they want to be Olympic athletes or even lose 5 pounds. It's because they feel good about themselves. And for some women, they've never had that sense of self-esteem or that empowerment or that self-belief. It gives them a great stepping stone. Honest to God, though, when I then went on to run the marathon and then ran Boston, running was always my secret weapon, because I could go to a board meeting with a bunch of guys, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and they'd always look and wonder what the chick was doing in here. And I would just take a deep breath, and I said, they didn't run the Boston Marathon. And it always gave me that armor. And I just think that from that one little thing, that one little piece of advice, yours with bike, mine was my dad, yours was your family also, you know, we can go so much further. And we also should realize, each one of us, that we have to pass that on to every kid we know, your own, but any kid out on the street, whatever. Give them an attaboy and attagirl, because capability and talent's everywhere. It just needs that opportunity and that inspiration. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. Ayana, how has running or sports impacted you?
Okay. So as I said, Boston is an adopted home for me, and I just remember as a kid going frequently to Wrigley Field and watching the Cubs play. And so what sport represented to me early on was community. And then I just remember watching the players, and for many reasons in my own life, I felt burdened and heavy. Just challenges, single parent household. My father battled addiction, was incarcerated most of my life. And I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and later campus sexual assault. So there was a lot of dysfunction in my life. And so when I would watch baseball players or runners, what resonated with me was they seemed free. And I was intrigued by that and envious of that. I wanted to feel strong, to feel and look strong and powerful. I didn't have the verbiage then to know that it was some form of self-agency, but I was inspired by it. But mostly what I wanted was that same sense of freedom. And so work with me. I'll try to keep on time here. So now
I'll turn it on.
Okay. So now fast forward, and I realized that one of the barriers to my giving myself that sense of agency and empowerment to pursue sports was this idea that I didn't look like an athlete. And so it was a deterrent. And being a woman of color and certainly having ethnic hair, there were many things that I thought I can't and shouldn't pursue. And so I was a competitive debater in school, class president, student government president, all that good stuff that you would expect. And then I decided to, bear with me, it is a real sport, to venture to be a cheerleader. And I was one of the first black cheerleaders at my school, and that was my way of affirming that, and we did lift weights and run, and it is a real sport. And I can tell you it was a real sport because I was the base. I held that pyramid. And I was also, so I was strong, okay? I was the foundation, to be clear. But, it is a transferable skill set, and there are things that I draw from that every day. I had to walk into a gymnasium in a space and, be able to command it and also to rally people and to motivate people. And I do draw from that every single day. But where I will end things is saying, in my adult life, when I prioritized my wellness and was working out regularly, I remember running on a treadmill. And when I first started running, it took me seriously 30 minutes to run a mile. And then I had worked my way to, about an 8-minute mile, which is, good. I don't know if that, is that good on a treadmill?
That's very good.
Well, maybe it was 10. But anyway, the point is, as I finish this story, taking some of my seconds from before that I didn't use. So I was in the gym and I was running this treadmill and I was, feeling very free and very strong and very powerful, and might I add, very cute too. I loved my ensemble, which is an important part of any gym routine. And so I was running on this treadmill, and I was, noting that I had good form and my breath felt good, and I was so proud of my progress. And that's the thing about running is, in that sense, it's very, these are solo victories because no one else knows this ground that you've made up and how you've improved. And then a younger woman got on the treadmill next to me. She had a cuter outfit on, and better form, and better breath. And I was so busy, this is an honest to God true story, looking at her, that I fell on that treadmill and injured myself. I actually cracked a tooth, right? And it was a metaphorical reminder to run your own race. And that has stayed with me in my own journey. So now the only sport that I participate in, and it is a contact one, is politics. But I'm running my own race. No more comparisons. So, yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
So,
Joanne.
I'll finish by saying, well, my father, I think, loved baseball more than he loved my mother. But anyways, so when I got to high school in 1970, so, I'm old. But anyways, when I got to high school in 1970, it was before Title IX, and I don't think anybody knows this. I actually played varsity sports, Mary Kate, in basketball, field hockey, and even a little tennis. The reason I was able to do that is because in 1970 in Worcester, Massachusetts, in my little Italian community, you would never go out and play sports. It just wasn't done if you were a woman. So I can remember being on the bus in the morning going to my high school, and I remember I was number 15 on the bus. I actually made varsity teams. There were no JV teams. It was it was so small. Wow. And I remember being on the bus with all the young guys who I was trying to impress in other pursuits, and having my uniform and thinking, my God, what are they going to think of me when I'm carrying this ironed blue, ugly uniform, number 15, as because I needed to go to basketball practice in the afternoon, and and I kind of hid it, Catherine, in 1970, because I didn't want them to know that I was also participating in sports. I was a good student. But, and you changed all that. I mean, Title IX, I think now to be a young woman and to play in sports is like something that people say, wow, you're on the state field hockey team. When I was playing sports, it was like, let me hide my uniform. Wow. And so I think then, and along with my family, I developed a huge love of sport that I've continued my entire life. And I was slow then running. So last story, I was also, you know. So I was a wing on the field hockey team, which is unbelievable because I was so slow, but I was a good shot. So I would score goals, and they would call them back because I was off sides because I couldn't run at all. So I couldn't run then, Mary Kate, and I still can't run now.
Number 15.
Thank you, ladies.
Number for your Tom bracelet.
Our second question tonight. A fearless decision is a subject of our second question. You have each moved boldly throughout your careers. What was your most fearless step, and what gave you the courage to make that decision? Zara.
I think coming to United States was definitely the biggest one, not only for me, but also for my parents. My sister and I, who's in the audience, actually, we are one of the very first few women who went outside of our province, not because we were married, not because we wanted to live with our brothers and just nanny them, but rather because we actually wanted to go to school. I attended the first female boarding school in Kabul, and that was a huge decision for my mom, for my parents, and I. Let me regather myself. And I think, okay, wow, I really forgot all the things I had to say.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
And I think not only like getting out of my province, but also coming to America was a huge transition. And I think when I think about it, my transition wasn't particularly about the food or the weather or anything else, but also the things that I had to do alone. I grew up with I have 8 siblings. So, but now when I was in my boarding school, I had a single room, and I had to learn to be alone in a room and to sleep in really quiet nights, which was really strange to me because I did grow up in a war-zone country, and I heard at night I would hear all these sounds, and it was really quiet. And for the first month, I actually slept on the floor because my bed was positioned in a way that it was next to the window. And unconsciously, I truly believed that I was like, if anything were to happen, if a bomb blast were to happen in Rhode Island, which is very not going to happen, the window is going to shatter and I'm going to be injured. And I didn't sleep in the bed for the first month. And I think those are the transitions that I had to make, or the fact that I had to learn, that I literally had to learn to walk in the dark because I was so scared. I couldn't even go from our school library to my dorm, which was just a minute walk. And I think those are some of the decisions that I had to make, and I had to learn. Like it seems very simple, but also it took a lot. I mean, it took a whole community. If it took my boarding school to basically reteach all this stuff, and for me to learn it, and yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Zara.
The question.
You did.
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yes, you did.
Catherine.
I think this would surprise you. Everybody thinks probably the most fearless thing I ever did, the biggest leap, was to run the Boston Marathon in 1967. But that wasn't at all it. That was something, as I said, that happened to me. This is going to even surprise you, Deb. The most fearless thing I think I've done is to start this foundation, this nonprofit. Edith and I sat for many days, months, then years, a couple of years, arguing about this. And I said, Edith, I'm too old for another revolution. I'm 68 years old then, and I'm 71 now. Wow. And I said, I can't do another revolution. And she said, you have to do it. You're always the one talking about taking responsibility. And she said, we just need you for a couple of years, and then we will do it. And I said, yeah, they all say that, right? Yeah. But actually, the leap was not just starting the nonprofit, because, I mean, I was in totally unknown territory. It was like you going to another country. I understand corporations. I understand budgets. And I understand profit plan, but I don't understand a nonprofit. It was a learning curve like this. It just was amazing for me. But the biggest leap was passing the torch to them, of really understanding that we were starting something that I would not live to see the fruition of, and that I was turning over the baby entirely to them. And it was a breathtaking and really freeing and wonderful experience. I mean, you've met Deborah, you've met Edith already. I mean, you've some people in the room here, 261ers. I mean, they're fabulous women. They're at the top of their game. They're the right age. They're between 40 and 53 or whatever, you know, prime time, ready for a legacy. And it's going to be their legacy. It's not going to be my legacy. And so the fearless thing for me, I think, was taking a deep breath and handing it to them. And they're going to run with it, and they're going to change the world. So there we go. I'm feeling better just having said it.
Yes.
And we thank you for the opportunity to do that, Catherine.
You're going to shine, baby.
Ayanna, what's your most fearless step that you've had to take?
I think running for office the first time, I had been an aide for 16 years. I worked for a congressman for 4 years. I worked for a United States senator for 11 years. And I mean, when I was much younger, I had designs of running for office. I had been voted most likely to be the mayor of Chicago. And to give you a sense of my mother's thoughts of me, she thought they aimed too low and was offended by that prediction. So I had sort of shelved that and really loved being the person behind the person. And I found great reward in that. And so when I was first approached about considering running for office, I said an emphatic no. I was afraid to be in the spotlight, to be exposed, to feel vulnerable. We all suffer from a level of imposter syndrome. And I said, people will realize I don't really have it that much together. And the thing with women is that we never think we're ready. We never think we're good enough. I see this in politics so often. It's I need to get one more degree or, you know, one more certificate or, you know, one more stamp of approval. And so I think the most fearless thing that I did was to get out of my own way and was to give myself permission to own and to stand in my own power unapologetically. And getting back to my point earlier about not making comparisons, I noticed when I would sit on stages with other candidates that were in my field, because when I first ran, I was in a field of 15 candidates and the only woman running, is that I spoke differently. You know, how I spoke about the issues, and it really pronounced this distinctive lens that I was bringing. My lived experience was different, my voice was different, and I judged myself because I wasn't speaking industry speak, even though I'd grown up in politics and government. And so I had to give myself permission, get out of your own way, and give yourself permission to stand firmly in your power and to be authentically you. And that ultimately led me to this moment now in running for Congress, and that is to say that I will not ask permission to lead, that I belong, and in the words of Maya Angelou, because it is so much bigger than me, that I came as one, but I stand as 10,000. So.
And I rely often, not so much on Maya, but on my good friend Eleanor Roosevelt, who, when I'm faced with something that I think, oh my God, how can I possibly do this? I hearken back to a couple of quotes that I use from her all the time. And the one that I use most often is, you must do the things you think you cannot do. So I often think about that when I'm trying to push through on something that I think is just too big for me. The other thing, with specific reference to running the board and running the BAA, is that I often think, and I often think about this in a political context as well, with you running and I think and women running this year, you know, we can't be any worse than the men. So I often, when I thought about you know, taking the reins, and I think to myself, well,
that is inspiring.
You know, there have been good presidents, mediocre presidents, and average and superlative. You know what? I'm going to stand right there with them. I can't be any worse than them. And just a funny story: the Boston Athletic Association has a sister race in a place called Ome, Japan. About 20 years ago, I was being sent there to represent the BAA because we have an exchange, a sister program with that race. And I was going with my mentor at the BAA, Gloria Ratty, and I'm going up the escalator at Logan to get on the plane. She's coming down the escalator, and she says to me, I forgot my passport, I'll see you tomorrow. And so I was like, what? So I get on the plane, I go to Japan, I get off the plane. About 15 hours later, I am in, I'll never forget this as long as I live, I am in a ballroom with 150 athletes, from China, Japan, West Germany, all over the place. There are lazy Susans with all kind of dead fish that I have never seen in my life that they're eating. And all of a sudden I hear somebody say, our guest speaker, you know, Joanne, all I heard was Joanne Flaminio. And I looked around, I said, are you kidding me? And so I got up there with an interpreter by my side. And after I finished, I guess I was pretty empowered.
Wow. That's good.
Elizabeth.
I think for me, I think personally there's tons of fearless things we all do, you know, within our lives that may be small, may be large, but professionally, for me, I was working in corporate America for a very long time, so very similar to what you said, Catherine. I was working in corporate America for a while and just kind of felt like I was just in a revolving door. Just wasn't really learning anything, wasn't experiencing anything, but most importantly, I didn't feel like I was doing anything to make my life and the people around me better. And that was important to me. And so it's as simple as one day I woke up and said, I'm done. I need to find out what really makes me tick, what's really important to me. And at the time, I had created a fundraiser in the name of my Uncle Danny, softball fundraiser, in case you're not seeing the theme here, but a softball fundraiser for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and said, you know what, I really love doing this. And I love giving back, and I love giving my uncle, you know, a name, helping him live on, you know, giving him a legacy. And that was so important to me. And so I said, well, I'm going to reach out to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I'm going to make my trip from corporate to nonprofit. And I didn't really know anything about it, except for my little event that I was putting on that was one day and raising about $8,000 in one day. And I thought, hey, I can do this, right? This is easy. And, you know, got the job, and fast forward here, I'm at the American Heart Association and the Stroke Association, and I'm running events in Boston that don't exist anywhere else, working with fantastic, wonderful people. And that decision, that one day that I woke up and said, I want more. I want to give back. I work with some of the most amazing survivors and caregivers of heart disease and stroke, and it might sound so cliche, but they give me more than I will ever give them. And I'm sure if you talk to any of them, they would say the reverse, but hands down, our survivors and our caregivers are just amazing, amazing individuals that inspire me on a daily basis. So that fearless decision, there's a lot of fear in it, I'm not really sure it was fearless, but that decision that I made all those years ago to say, I want to do more with my life. I want to, when I leave this earth, I want to be able to say, okay, I did the best I could do, and I gave of myself to other people, and I helped change even one life would make me feel like my purpose on the world was made if I was able to change one life. And I know that what I do at the American Heart Association, I'm able to help in conjunction with our entire team to change thousands and millions of lives on a daily basis. And so that's so tangible for me and something that I love. So now I don't feel like I'm in a revolving door. I feel like everything that I do, from the one little phone call saying, yes, we can help you, to a stroke survivor, to sending one little thank you card, means so much. And all of that money that we raise as a team in our office is going to cures, so that one day somebody doesn't have to lose their uncle like I did, or lose their grandparents like I did. So it's important to me to make a difference. And I feel like that decision that I made all of those days has now made me who I am, and it makes me just feel like I love my life. It's great. And I feel like what's not to love about helping people, truly, so.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And that's a perfect lead-in to our third question.
Not intentional.
You've talked about helping people and using role models, how you've all been impacted by role models. And that leads us to mentoring, you as mentors. Mentoring women is an important aspect of being a game changer. What do you do to support women as they become fearless, as they become proactive, and they overcome challenges? Joanne, do you want to start?
Okay, so I think one thing that I'm most proud of is when I was going to become the president of the BAA, I was in a cab with Pam Everhart, who was kind enough to be here alongside me. And I was becoming the president of the BAA, and she was becoming president of the Lynx, which is a terrific, hopefully I'll get it right since Ariana is a member, is a minority women professionals organization dedicated to service. Is that good enough?
That's great.
And so we were in a cab in DC, and I said to her, I said, I'm going to be president of the BAA. I need more diversity. I need more women. And she said, I'm going to be president of the Lynx. I need an athletic organization. And I said, you're kidding. And she said, why? I said, why don't we put something together? And so we did. And so I provided some of the athletic components, and for the next 3 to 6 years at a school in downtown Boston called the MLK, an underserved identified school, and we put on a fitness program in the afternoon, and the Lynx did health and well-being and teaching them how to cook and what to eat and how to be better people in terms of health and well-being, and I'm awfully proud of that because I think it helped not only the Pam's organization but also the young girls there for ages to come. The funniest story that Pam ever tells is that the first time the Lynx had lunch with these young girls, they served salad. So the young women ate the salad, and then they turned and they said, okay, what's for lunch? And so, I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of increasing the membership of the BAA to at least 1/3 women. And also, most importantly, it was great to be president during the celebration of 50 years of women at Boston, which culminated in Catherine's historic 50-year anniversary run in last year. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Elizabeth.
I think for me, I mean, in my position, not just at the American Heart Association, but in other nonprofits that I've worked at, I've had the opportunity to mentor or to be a supervisor of some really amazing men and women. And so what I try my best to do is to make sure that they understand that this is a team. And again, kind of going through the theme of all of the answers to my questions is teamwork, and that I want to help them grow in their professional career. I want to help them succeed. And so they understand that as their supervisor, as their mentor, as their coach, that I am going to be there when they fail. And I'm for the people that work with me, is to make sure that they understand that they have such a fantastic support network, and I want to be part of that. Personally, and I guess this is professionally as well, is one of the things that I get to do managing Teddy's team, which is our endurance training program at Heart, is that I get to, as I said previously, work with some amazing survivors. And many of them will call me because they've either had a stroke, a heart attack, or they were born with heart disease, and they don't have a belief in their body anymore. Their body has let them down. They've had a stroke, they've had a heart attack, and they don't trust their body. And so they call me and they just say, well, I just want to volunteer. So what can I do to help out the team? I can't run. I don't trust my body. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel comfortable. And I work with them to help them believe that their body doesn't control them, they control their body. And it's a very mind over matter piece. I have one example really quickly. One of my runners who is running Boston this year for our team, she called me up over in the summer. She's a stroke survivor, less than a year, a survivor of stroke, when she called me, and she said that she, again, wanted to volunteer, and said that she didn't trust her body. She'd been running forever, had the stroke, unfortunately, after she had delivered her child. And so she had, it was a traumatic experience, obviously, delivering a child and then having the stroke after that. And so she had no faith in her body, no faith in what she was able to accomplish. And we started small. And so we said, okay, how about the Falmouth Road Race? That's coming up in August, let's do that. And she crossed that finish line, and she had the most amazing smile on her face. And I knew that it wasn't just that smile. It wasn't that superficial smile that was the best part. It was that she now believed in her body. Her mind now took back over and said, I got this. And 2 weeks later, she called me up and said, when do the applications for Boston open? I want to run this year. And I said, I knew that you were going to call me and tell me that, and I'm so excited. And so for me, yes, I'm mentoring the people that I work with, but I also get to mentor these survivors in a way. And it's kind of weird because I'm mentoring them and I'm not a survivor myself, but I think I can give them that outside perspective to say, you've got this, and you are the reason why you can come back from such a traumatic experience. And so for me, the mentorship is really important, and in that case, I'm helping them understand that they can overcome anything, such a traumatic experience like stroke or heart disease. So that's, like I said earlier, it's more, I get more out of it than I'm sure that they do. But for me, that's a true mentorship experience on both sides.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Sarah.
I can think of two things, actually. One of them is actually related to my blog. I run a blog called The Hijabi Runner. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do. I'm advocating for myself. But I think I think what I want to share the process of that. When I was in I actually went to boarding school in America, and for the first 2 years, I was really scared of running outside. I actually run cross country as a senior. And I always went to the gym early because I was very, it's hard to say, but I was actually really insecure about how I dressed up. So I would always run with these really loose pants and like loose shirts and then a big scarf like tied around. And I would run in treadmill and I would wake up early to run. And my math teacher, who also happened to be the cross country coach, said, I always see you running, why don't you run? And then I replied, I was like, have you seen me? Like, and then she was like, I don't understand. And I was like, oh, I just look different, and I don't feel comfortable running in the uniforms that we have at our school. And she was like, I don't want to hear that. I want you to come back and be part of the cross country team. And that day, actually, I went and I searched in Google. I was like, girls with scarf, Muslim runners, and I truly couldn't find more than 2 or 3 pictures that I could relate to. And I was like, well, there's not much. And when I went back to Afghanistan that summer and I tried explaining this concept of running to my mom, and through that I realized how much I actually wanted to run. And then I started running, and I think that became my own motivation to start my blog, in a way indirectly show these other Muslim women that actually you can run, that the way you dress up shouldn't, even though you do get stares that only girls with scarf would know what I'm talking about, but like that shouldn't stop you. That was one of the ways I think I'm contributing to the Muslim woman, especially in the West. And I think the other part is I'm actually an ambassador for an organization called Free to Run, which empowers women in conflicted areas. And I think growing up in a society or in a country that has been in war for the past 4 decades, women usually get up, do things to make the life of a man better. You wake up, clean the house, do the dishes, make breakfast before your brother or your husband or a man in your family is awake. So, and then you iron their clothes. So every minute of a woman's life is actually dedicated to make the life of a man better. And I think there's a very little sense of satisfaction in that kind of life, and I think the organization Free to Run does this amazing job of empowering women in those countries. And I do get to talk to our team in Afghanistan, and I think hearing from what they have to say, and most of the time I'm very hesitant to basically be like, oh, I also lived in Afghanistan, I know it all, because I have been in the West. I have had the opportunity to be here and to wake up in the morning and just go and run and not worry about another bomb blast, not worry about street harassment. So to be able to hear about what they have to say, and for them to know that I'm here and I have gone through what they have gone through, and I have an understanding of what they're going through every day when they wake up at 4 a.m. to go and do their team run because it's dark and no one is outside to judge them and to harass them. So I think my way of giving back is just basically being a mentor and talking to them, and I've become really good friends with a good number of them, and they're absolutely impressive. They run way more than I do, which I'm like, ooh. But yeah. So.
Thank you, Zara. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Catherine.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, that's why, we're here with 261 Fearless. It is mentoring. It is empowering women. And I'd just like to say how. There's nothing better than reaching out and doing a direct touch and bringing a woman into your friendship. And so with 261 Fearless, the core element, the heart and soul of the organization is what we're doing. And this isn't what I'm doing. So now it's I, it's we, okay? It's direct touching women through a community club. Just as simple as bringing women together to put one foot in front of the other. But the key thing is to create an environment that is non-intimidating and non-judgmental. Because so many women will say, oh, I can't do that, I'm the wrong color or the wrong religion or I'm from the wrong side of the tracks, or I'm too fat or I'm too old or I'm too slow, I'm not pretty enough. These are all things we grew up with. And I'm not really an athlete. And we're saying it doesn't matter, all those things. We don't care about that. This is not an organization to teach you how to run faster or become an Olympic athlete. This is an organization where you come together with another woman, you put one foot in front of the other, and you will find your fearless. So fearless women are reaching out and saying, come on, whoever you are, join us. Creating that non-judgmental atmosphere, though, is not easy. It's easy to teach people how to run, to be a coach, and how to put one foot in front of the other. But how many women really can create a non-judgmental atmosphere? It's very unique. We have a wonderful program called Train the Trainer, 261 Train the Trainer, which we work on the psychological and this emotional element a lot, so that we can open those doors. We dream of doing things in Afghanistan. We're going to be on your case a lot, Zara. We dream of having much more diversity. We really, really need this. And while 261 Fearless is not a homeless shelter, it's not a place for people to come and weep and wail. It's a place to put all of the crap of your day behind you for a while, come out once a week, meet with other women, and not be judged on anything, but let's just go out and walk and run together. Because when you do that, you share the secrets of your soul. It just happens. It comes out with the endorphins. It comes out with that transformational experience. And at the end of every session, no matter what, you always feel good about yourself. You feel like, hey, I've taken time for myself.
Yes.
You give it all away. Women give it all away all the time.
Depleted.
We now have given something to ourselves that enriches us and opens our brains and our hearts a little bit more. That's really what it's about. And we talk about this fearful women. And the sad part of this conversation tonight is that most of the women in the world live in a fearful situation. Most of the women in the world live in a fearful situation. We think they're in Afghanistan or Iraq or North Africa. She's probably your next door neighbor too, okay? And what we can offer is, hey, come out and run and walk with me. Come join us. We'll show you how to do this. We're very small right now. Edith, what, 57 clubs in 15 countries about this, okay? I mean, that sounds pretty good actually already, because each of those coaches has been trained. She knows what she's doing. And we're working on master coaches so we can go now really all around the world. The trick is doing it within your own culture. We don't want to come in as Americans and say, hey, we're going to show you how to do this. We need to train you to go back to Afghanistan and create a non-judgmental environment so that you know your own culture, you know your own society, and your religious and your cultural mores. We don't know those things. We count on you. So those are things that we have in the works. We got wonderful coaches here who are doing a fabulous job in the greater Boston area. And we're expanding. And we hope the next time we have this panel discussion, which I hope we can do maybe on an annual basis, we can talk about how we have brought in so many more women from so many different countries. We have gotten incredible feedback from these women. I guess the final thing is to say, it's really important to know you're not alone out there. And if you have a friend, and we have a wonderful, powerful website where these women can communicate with each other, you know how important the internet is. We have a closed, safe portal where women can safely communicate, which we find is very, very important. We're going to go into different languages now. Can you help us with Arabic? Okay.
I can help you with Farsi, but I don't know much Arabic.
Okay. So there we are, creating hopefully a global community of women. Change women, you're going to change the world.
Thank you, Catherine. Ayana, how do you support women as they become fearless and overcome challenges?
Well, as a survivor, as I alluded to earlier, childhood sexual abuse and also campus sexual assault, this has been a priority of mine. This is really my heart's work, to empower victims to getting on a pathway to healing and justice. So I've done that work, and it is survivor-led, which I think is very important. I do that work within the human trafficking space, also sexual exploitation, and then in the sexual assault, I work very closely with the Boston Area Rape Crisis Center, again, just in creating space for survivor-led and centered movement building, and certainly then working within the halls of government to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to not only shift culture to get it to a place of zero tolerance, but also from our workplaces to our courtrooms to the halls of government, our campuses, that we are then, there's this Me Too movement and there's this elevated consciousness and activism around these issues, but ultimately we need to institutionalize that activism and codify that, permanently, so in perpetuity, these things stand. And again, that we can get victims on a pathway to healing and to justice. The other is that as an elected official, I've made it a point to be intentional in building a bench, not only of women that will run for office, but the women behind the women. So I take great pride in the people that I've hired, in my interns, in my internships and in my fellowships. And then one other survivor community that I wanted to talk about that isn't given much oxygen, but is also an extension of my heart's work and my service, and that is to create space for surviving family members of gun violence victims. I'm very proud that I held the first ever listening-only hearing in the Boston City Council. We brought together almost 400 families who had lost loved ones to gun violence, and again, in a survivor-led way, heard from them about how we could better support them, because there is generational trauma that communities that are impacted by violence and families by gun violence that remains in community and in those families. And violence begets violence, and trauma begets trauma. And so I'm trying to disrupt those cycles of violence by supporting those traumatized families, and again, empowering those survivors as well. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've all shared very personal, incredible, inspiring stories with us tonight. Thank you. And at this time, we would like to open the floor to questions for our panelists. In the interest of time, we ask that you state your name and briefly ask your question. And Gilda and Katina, I think they have microphones to share. Oh, in the back there. Katina, can you grab that microphone? Thank you. Do you have any questions for our panelists?
You said it all.
Do you have any comments? How about your comments? What do you think?
Okay, great. Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Avery. I'm curious just sort of if you could talk a little bit about how technology is sort of helping aid in your fearlessness and connecting with folks that possibly you weren't able to connect with prior to all the technological innovations that we've had in the last couple of years, and if you feel as though it's an added benefit versus sort of just the interactions that we need to have just on a personal level. But I guess to sort of sum it up, just how technology has helped sort of spearhead or further your fearless abilities.
Can I start with this?
Sure.
Because when I told you the story about how Edith and I were arguing over how to start 261 Fearless, I said, Edith, come on, we can't reach those women in the Mideast or North Africa. And I said, and she said, yes, we can. There's an internet, hello? And I said, Edith, we're talking about poor women. They don't have access to an internet. And Edith said, Catherine, no matter how poor any group of 10 women are, one of them will have an internet connection. She said, how do you think Arab Spring happened? And I went, duh. I mean, so for me, at 71, I'm so technologically behind that they are showing me how vastly important it is. It's huge to have this website. It's huge for you to be able to communicate with your sisters out there. It's amazing. So yeah, I think that huge for me, us.
I think Catherine said it all, but I think also in some ways it really, the technology that's happening, it really does help connect different communities and like provides a platform for a lot of people to have a role model in not like the big, not like famous one, but also the small ones and stuff like that. I don't know what else to say. She said it really well.
I don't feel like I can add anything to that except for, especially for what I do for work, you know, the internet is important. It's our way to be able to connect with people outside of, you know, just kind of picking up the phone. So it's more immediate, which is nice. But of course, in fundraising, the phone or the thank you, the handwritten thank you note is always important. But the internet allows it to be really immediate, and that is hugely helpful when you're trying to get things done at a fast pace.
So about 14,000 women are going to run the Boston Marathon on April 16th. 16th?
16.
16th. And I'm not president anymore. I have to know those things. And you should know that all of this year there is an elite female field that is unparalleled. And that has been put together by Mary Kate Shea of John Hancock, who was right there. And more women run in our races, 5K, 10K, half marathons than ever before, and they all enjoy our brand new computer system where we can really do a runner profile and do everything electronically with them. So it has really enabled us to move forward and to continue to keep pace with marathons all over the world and to certainly be seen as one of the best.
I would say, so I'm 44, and I did my first campaign when I was 10 years old to elect the first African-American mayor in Chicago, Harold Washington. So I have really seen the evolution of technology. I mean, I remember in 1996, I was working for Senator John Kerry on his re-election campaign, and we received an innovation award for using email. So I have seen, you know, a real trajectory here. And I just want to be fully transparent and say that the internet and these platforms are incredible. I'm super active on Twitter, you know, try to keep up with Instagram and Facebook. But as much as these can become a two-way conversation and an opportunity to build community and to mobilize, something that I find frustrating is that in politics, there is now this online retail where people think something is only real if it's posted or if it's hashtagged. So I'm reminded when our mayor, Tom Menino, passed, that a reporter had reached out to me and said, you didn't you know, post a tweet, rest in peace, you know, Tom Menino, did you have some conflict with the mayor? And I said, no, I called his wife. I mean, so I am a little worried culturally, and certainly I don't like Twitter trolls, so I'm just going to put that out there. And so from an activism standpoint, where we have seen with Arab Spring and, you know, even what's happening with the Parkland students and so many things, there is this, again, elevated and raised consciousness. But I worry about people where their activism begins and ends at a retweet and a like, you know. And so nothing beats grassroots mobilization and that one-on-one, you know, contact and organizing. I have a question for the runners. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now I have, you know, some dear friends in this room, I will not call them out, who've spoken and waxed poetic about the benefits of running as therapy, right? Which I do believe that that's real. But is the runner's high a real thing?
Yes.
Is that real? Because I'm just, listen, you all look miserable when you're running. So I don't, you know, no one is running and smiling. I'm often, you know, I'm on the bus and I'm sitting I'm in a lift or in someone's car and I'm watching someone, they look miserable. Should we offer them a ride? You know, so is this runner's high, Catherine? Somebody tell me, is it real?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm in my head.
Okay.
Like, you know, about 3 miles in, everything just kind of disappears, and I'm inside. So I don't know what I look like on the outside, depending on what I'm thinking about.
Yes.
But it's my time, and that's,
Love it.
you know, that's what it is.
And also, I'll
Here
add
we
that there are times, so I've run all different distances, and sometimes when I run a 5K, it's usually my worst race because I'm not in my groove.
Okay.
And so usually it's that 10K or above is when I shine.
All right.
I mean, I'm not fast by any means, but that's when I really kind of feel it. And when I'm running and when I'm training, those first couple of miles seem like hell. They just do. And I think it's because the reverse of that, I'm in my head and I'm thinking, where can I get French fries afterwards? Or do I have laundry in the wash? Or just things like that are just running in your head. But then as I continue to run longer distance, I get out of that and I start just enjoying my surroundings. And then I've hit that runner's high usually around mile 8, mile 10, mile 12. And when you hit it, then you just don't even realize. You stop thinking of, ooh, what can I have? What do I have back in the refrigerator that I can eat when I get home? You just start thinking about how happy and empowered you are because you're able to do this. And for me, in my case, a lot of the running that I do is been for charity. So I start thinking of why I'm doing it and why it's important to me. So I think of my inspiration, my heroes, and that kind of helps me through. But yeah, the runner's high is real, for sure.
I'm living vicariously through all of you. Yes. What were you gonna say?
And I just wanted to add to that, as Linda had said, for me, it's therapy, and 261 is about walkers wanting to transition to running, to hardcore runners, and it's running from pole to pole, and it's gaining confidence in yourself, and then you might run a 3K, and all of a sudden, I've heard here and from other runners that are training for the marathon, you get to mile 3, and it's like, yes, mile 1, 2, and 3 always suck, but you get to 3, and you get to mile 3, and then you've got your headphones on, and you're actually, come to my town, I'm like, jamming down the street. So yes, there is such a thing as a runner's high. And I just wanted to add, on behalf of the Greater Boston 261 Fearless Running Club, I look at the sign behind Catherine. It says, "Be fearless, be free, be grateful." We're all here grateful to have such dynamic women in front of us sharing their stories. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have some more questions?
Very quick one. What's your next revolution?
Oh, good at this.
Because I know you guys will not be stopped, even Catherine. I know you have another one in you.
Well, I'm in my next revolution. I'm 71. I'm not going to be around in 50 years to see the progress that we made over the course of the last 50 years. I didn't know I was 71 actually until about last year, because everybody was saying you're going to be 70, and I said I am. I thought I was 25, which is also wonderful, because I've never realized I was aging. But I will tell you what I think the next revolution is going to look like. I'm going to say this. For 3,000 years, sports has been about speed, power, and strength. And we only, due to our emergence as women in this last 50 years especially, have realized what women's capabilities are, which means we are actually superior in endurance, stamina, balance, and flexibility. And we're going to be creating, and the women in this room, the younger women, are going to be creating sports and activities that are going to transform the way sports look. I can imagine Olympic Games where there's a 6-day race and a 24-hour one. Women are going to win outright. Or maybe even better, because I love men. I really do. I've married a lot of them. But, oh, boy, that went live. No, men have always been very supportive of women in running. That's a very important point that we should make here tonight. We probably wouldn't really be so advanced. In a million years, we wouldn't have been if the men in running hadn't always been supportive of us. And what I see is an event, perhaps, where we take men's speed, power, and strength and combine it with women's endurance, stamina, and balance, and create a relay of some kind. I think it could be absolutely fabulous. So I think in the future, we have a very, very exciting future where women emerge with their own sense of empowerment, and sports is going to be one way that's reflected. So I think there's going to be, there are many revolutions that are coming, but I think the sports revolution is going to be one of them.
Well, I would say, the biggest struggle was my internship. Now that has been taken care of. But I would say, I don't know if it's revolution, but I'm working on a project right now, which is basically I'm working with an editor, with a former editor from Marvel's, in creating a graphic novel, which is basically very similar to about the stories that I write for my blog. And right now we're in the process of writing a story which is going to be 8-page long. It's about running and fasting. And one of the things that I really like about this, the project that I'm working on with Nate, is that even though it is about fasting, which is very particular to Muslim faith, which is about Ramadan, it's actually, we don't mention the name of religion or anything, so we can, it can, a wider range of audiences can hear it, and it's about the whole, the overall message is about if you don't do something, how do you know that you are capable of or not capable of? And I think that's exactly what my mentality was when I went for my first marathon. I actually trained for a half marathon, and the night before I told my coach, who's actually shaking her head right now, that, hey, I'm gonna run a marathon, and she was like, you're crazy, you should not do that, it's a trail marathon. But I think I'm going off tangent, but that's something that I'm working on right now.
Oh, that's exciting.
The copies will be online, and I will keep you all updated. But yeah.
I think.
Careful of her.
I know. I don't even know how to compete with that. I'm not even about who wants to compete with that. I think for me, our next, I guess, revolution, so to speak, would be part of what I'm doing at the American Heart Association with everyone else that I work with is in Boston is trying to make Boston the healthiest city in the country. Ideally, it would be awesome in the world. And so really, we have some amazing women, some amazing men, some amazing leaders in our city and in our state of Massachusetts. And so really, our offices are working to make sure that we are helping people live healthier lives free of cardiovascular disease and stroke, but truly helping them be complete self, making sure that it's heart, it's health, it's brain, and making sure that you're thinking of the whole body. So really, truly, it's an undertaking. Let's be honest. Every time I walk the streets and I see someone smoking a cigarette or like me eating a cheeseburger, it's tough. It's not easy. But really, truly, it's an undertaking that our entire office is really proud of in the strides that we've been able to make so far. So it is going to be a revolution, but we're ready for the task.
All right. I would just say there's more work to be done. You need equal purses for women when running. They need to make the same amount of money that men do, and also to get more women in places of power in athletic organizations and other governing bodies. We're still lagging way behind that. And finally, I've agreed to be a global advocate for 261
Yes.
Fearless.
Yes, our first global advocate.
Well, as I have said often, that in Boston, and perhaps even in Boston, we do a great job at celebrating diversity. But I think the next revolution will be where we do more than celebrate it with flag raisings and parades and lapel pins, but when we honor it. And the way that we honor it is shared power. And that makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. But ultimately, shared power is not about charity or benevolence or some sort of harmony and poetry. It is what makes for a more innovative and more just society, and certainly a better government. When government is reflective and representative of the people that it is tasked to represent and serve, it means the issues that we work on are more robust and fully informed. It means the solutions we develop are more innovative and more enduring. And so I hope that we get to a place of new normal where we don't have to say things like gender and racial parity, because when you look at decision-making tables, whether it's in the private sector or corridors of power in the halls of government, that they will just simply be representative of the population, and we will no longer be an anomaly and a minority in these spaces. It is incredible to be the first, and we applaud everyone that is a first in their own right, but it is certainly no legacy to be the last.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Very good job.
So
That's awesome.
I think we have time for one more brief question. Yes?
I kind of want to make a statement, but yet ask a question in the end. You all are all trailblazers in your own right, from the youngest to the oldest. And we as women, we have been set in the back seats. But now we have moved so far forward that we can't stop here. We have to continue to go. We have to continue to inspire and continue to push forward. So each and every one of you said the revolution, but your revolution is still now. You got to still keep pushing. You got to still keep inspiring. You got to still keep allowing people to see you so they can see the good in you and want to be you. Because we want to inspire people to want to be us so they can push past us to be so much greater.
Right. I buy that. I just want to say something about that. I'm not sure fearless is the absence of fear. I think it is the management of it, if we're really being honest, because I don't think we're managing our fears. We're not without them. And the other thing is that very often we speak about self-esteem as if it's an inevitability. But it is not. It's something that is earned, and it's earned in those small victories, whether it's in running a mile and hitting a better time or, accomplishing a task. But, I think you were referencing that earlier, in little victories, every day. So, but I think we're just managing our fears. So if we can figure that out,
So as we wrap up our evening of incredible stories and inspiration, could you each provide one word or a short phrase that describes you as a game changer?
Oh, Lord.
That's the toughest question of the night.
Catherine?
Responsible. I really, I feel the burden of responsibility a lot. Keeps me awake a lot at night. I'm sorry to say, but it does. Because it needs to be done. But on the other hand, it's an honor and a privilege. I would say responsible.
Yeah. Sarah?
I'm actually thinking, I think my coach will be a better person to ask this question. But I would say determined. Passionate. Yeah.
Oh, you took my
word. I would say passionate.
Well, I would also, I'm going to stick with my word, but I would also say passionate because that's what drives me to want to be a better person and help people is the passion that I have for what I do. So that's probably the thing that drives me the most is my passion.
Joanne?
I'm not sure. I guess I would say persistence, I guess. I hung in there a long time, waiting for the opportunity, and I wasn't going to give it up, and I wasn't going to stop until I got there. So I would say persistence. Or
Great.
Patience, maybe, is probably even a better word.
I was going to say vision, but I think I'll say conviction.
Conviction. Thank you. So thank you so much, ladies. Thank you to our panel of game changers and fearless women. Ayanna Pressley, Joanne Flaminio, Elizabeth Perry-Terrell, Zara Abzada, and Catherine Switzer. And thank you to our partners. Oh, thank you. It's been an honor sharing the stage with you ladies tonight. Thank you. And thank you also to our partners, the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, Adidas, Bose, WBZ CBS Boston, and Boston Magazine for helping to put together an evening of empowerment. So on behalf of 261 Fearless, I wish you all a very happy International Women's Day. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.